Alright, hey guys, what is up? It is Bibzuda back here once again on the Outlast Trials, and in this video I am going to be continuing my Outlast Trials Over Explained series. And this series basically is where I go through every single trial on a map and just pretty much fully explain everything I do and all of the objectives and how they work on the map, as well as include any niche little tips or tricks or knowledge of how the objectives work and how they spawn that might help you complete the trial more easily. So this series has tips both for if you've just started the game and are very new, or even if you're experienced, you might have something here that will be valuable to you. And this time around we are going to be taking a look at the Toy Factory. We have already covered Police Station, Orphanage, Fun Park, and Courthouse. You can check those out. And it has been a little while since I made one of these, which I do apologize for. I would like to get them all completed, although after Suburbs, really, like the ones that have less than 3 MKs, I don't know if I want to immediately cover or how I want to do it exactly, but we'll see. Still, we've got a long way to go before we get there. And yeah, basically we are here for the Fun Park now. Finally, I've been a bit busy recently and haven't had as much time to make content, so I apologize for that. I've also kind of been focusing pretty hard in on a game I am working on 100% completing, because it will be my 300th 100% completion on Steam, and I'm going to be doing N++ for that, which is an incredibly difficult and extremely long game that has, taken up a lot of my time that I've been grinding for. But anyways, enough about my excuses. Let's just get into the Toy Factory, which is, of course, Gooseberry's third and final map at the current time in the game. And it has 6 trials on it currently. The main trial, of course, being Pervert the Futterman, alongside 5 MKs. Most recently released is Flatten the Foreman, which should be interesting to go over, as I honestly will probably have the fewest tips for that one. I mean, it's the most new trial, and also it doesn't really have that much consistent spawning and things like that I've seen. So we'll get into that when we arrive there. But first off is Pervert the Futterman, and as usual for these videos, I'm going to be playing on standard difficulty with no loadout. So if you are playing these trials on a higher difficulty, the enemy spawns may be different, so just be aware of that. However, I will, of course, as always, give a recommended loadout. This right here is my standard loadout. The stun, noise reduction, smash, and boosted is what I would normally just default recommend, and before each trial I will say if I would make any changes to that recommended loadout for the trial in particular. So, for this first trial, which is Pervert the Futterman, I would honestly suggest switching over to Blind for this trial. It is very useful in 2 different places. Often Blind is very good on main trials for the finale, but this one also has a secondary use on the cranking section of this trial, so it can be used in 2 different places. It's quite useful, and I would recommend it, especially in particular on this trial in comparison to others, because you have the time-limited factor of the valve turn into the pumping. So having the blind on the pump so you can just straight pump the entire thing is very, very nice, very, very helpful. So yeah, I would switch over to Blind for that. No real reason to switch up any of the other amps, I don't think. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you guys when we arrive at Pervert the Futterman here on standard difficulty. Alright, we have arrived at Pervert the Futterman here on the Toy Factory. Let's head on in. And of course, as this is the first trial on the map, things are going to be very unique and interesting. The curious thing to note about this is that this area right here, the beginning of the trial, I don't think you ever, or no, you do actually. It's hard to actually conceptualize. I hadn't even thought about it before this moment, but it is hard to really compare this part of the trial to the MKs, because the MKs, in terms of the map layout, are very different on this map. Also, on higher difficulties at least, you will see a large grunt out here, so you can't really dilly-dally. It's not fully safe to loot this area. But But the first thing you have to do is to infiltrate the toy factory. The door is right here in front of us. However, you need a key, and the key is in the basement. So that is where we need to go to get to the basement. As always, for main trials, you will be returning to this location to leave the trial, so that's important to note. However, this is where you'll actually end up at the very end. The finale of the trial is right through this door. But we can't get there, obviously, till the end. But that's where we'll come back out of to get back to the shuttle. Again, as always for these, I'm not going to go too overly in-depth about like how to navigate the map necessarily. I'm not going to say like for this objective go left and then go right. But I'm going to give sort of more general tips about navigation and then more focused tips and talking about the objectives themselves. So it's a pretty straight shot, pretty obvious and clear to get down here to the basement. And you do have a garage door here. We talked about these in plenty of detail in many of the other videos, especially the police station. You do have to be aware that there is often an enemy on the other side of this. I don't know if there is on standard difficulty, but if you do lift the garage, they can pull you under and get you damaged. So be wary when doing this in higher difficulties. It seems we were safe here. And now we're in the basement area. This basement area is pretty small and often has a screamer, so it is pretty annoying to be in a lot of the time. Although if I remember right, yeah, there's no enemy here on lower difficulties until you've like basically already completed the objective, so it's pretty easy. Is there not even a screamer actually? Oh wow, there's not even a screamer on the lower difficulties. But basically what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to come to this center of the area, this central room, which has a heavy object gate in the way, which I talked about more on Cleanse the Orphans, I think was the first time we discussed those. But basically any objective item you pretty much can't bring through these gates, and the way you usually get around them is exchange windows. But in this trial it introduces a new mechanic, which is these conveyor belts. So you see this long conveyor belt right here. This basically is how you get the items into the room that you know, to get past the heavy object gate, the room that has the heavy object gate. So this one already has an item sitting on it. You basically need to take these boxes of junk and put them into the trash compactor, because we have a friend in there, but the main thing that's in there is the key. Key inside, fill the compactor. And in solo, you need to put 3 boxes in here, which does include the tutorial, so you need to find 2 more boxes outside, and then you put them on the conveyor out there. They will slowly come through, and you have to pick them up when they arrive. And that is the important part about this that makes it a little bit more annoying and difficult than the trade exchange windows, because you have to be here when the object goes by in order to pull it off of the conveyor belt. And if you miss it, there's no real recourse. You just have to wait for it to come back around, which can be pretty annoying. Also, very small tip here. If you look through this window, you can see right now there is a room back there. It's very hard to see, but there is a room back there, and you'll be able to see it very clearly if the lights are on in that room, in which case that means that the secret room is there, which is one of the worst secret rooms you can get, because that's very close to the end of the trial. But you can look back through that window to see if the secret room is in that bad spot. Please, buddy, stop talking. So the way it works is you want to find the boxes of junk, but importantly, one thing that you don't want to do is pick this box up off of the conveyor and put it into the compactor to like start the sequence, because whenever you pick this box up and put it in the compactor, the conveyor belt will start moving. But what you can actually do, and it's very unique to this trial, because in every other trial with the conveyors they are just constantly moving, but very uniquely in this trial you can preload the conveyor with the other boxes of junk, so you don't have to worry about adding them on when you when it's already moving. So you can preload it and then go move that first box, and then the conveyor will start moving. Additionally, there's this light right here that will come on once the conveyor is moving, and makes it a little bit more dangerous to drop the boxes off yourself, so it can also save you from getting spotted in that regard. Now, the boxes can kind of be anywhere in these 2 basement rooms. So there's this room right here that we're in. There's a box right there. And then maybe sometimes they can be out in this nebulous passageway, but mostly they're going to be in these 2 rooms. Very often in solo, there'll be 1 in each room, but you can have both in 1 room. It can happen. And then in groups, it's usually like 1 in one of the rooms and 2 in the other. That's generally the spawn pattern. So yeah, most of the time look for 1 in each room, but in rare occasions you can get both in a single room. And of course, these are the regular heavy objects. There's nothing special about them like acid or anything like that. Nothing really to worry about. We talked more about heavy objects in the original police station video. As always for these videos, if there is an objective or a mechanic that we already explained in a prior video in this series, I'm not going to go into it too much and just refer you to those other videos. I'll still give a brief recap, but if it's something we already went over, then you're going to want to check out, make sure you watch through all of the videos to get every objective and at its most basic level, if that's something you need. Anyways, bring the boxes of junk, and then you can just bring them up here and just place them on the conveyor. Like I said, you can just place them there before it starts moving, and that is probably the biggest little tip that you can do to make this trial a bit easier for yourself, because not only does that make it so that the light doesn't come on and you don't get spotted, but now the boxes will be right next to each other, and you can easily pick both of them up off of the conveyor whenever you go in there, because we grab both boxes, put them both on the conveyor right next to each other, and now we go through into the compactor room, grab the tutorial box and throw it in the compactor, which is very simple. You just walk up to it and throw it in. It has a little animation, which is a bit long, but it's not too bad. And now, as you'll see, the conveyor will now start moving. And since we already preloaded the boxes, they're going to come over, and I will be able to grab them both very easily. Obviously, if you are not doing this, you'll either have to make 2 trips and, place one and then immediately run in here and grab it, and then do it again for the other one, or you'd place them both at separate times, and they would be desynced, and the timing could end up messing you up. Now, you might have heard the enemy did just spawn into this area. The good thing is about the enemy that roams around, this is very loud, so I'm going to pause it, because once you finish with the boxes, it'll crush the guy in there, open up, give you the key. The good thing about the enemy in this area is they don't really come into this room unless they hear or see you in the room, so you can mostly be safe and not have to worry about getting spotted while you're doing this. And that's another good reason to make it so that you load the conveyor first, because then you can make sure you are safe and stealthy in this room before starting the conveyor, so you can guaranteed get the boxes. Anyway, enemy just walked by. Now that the compactor is finished, it crushes the guy and opens up, and then the key will be sitting right here. You can grab that, and now we're going to head out. You can go back through the garage if you want. That is an option, but there is a barred door route that is easier and safer usually, so you just head back here into the back of this room, and then there's a little climb up spot that brings you to this barred door, and now we're back out at the front of the factory. Nice little shortcut there that I would definitely recommend you take. We can open up the factory with the key, completing our initial infiltrate the toy factory objective, and now we have to reach the production line. And this is a pretty linear little section. We actually got the secret room here. This is one of the possible secret room spawns. Button's probably right here. Yep. So we'll head in and grab those items. But yeah, this is a pretty linear little section. There's quite a few, honestly, little offshoots and side rooms that you can look into if you want to try and loot. But generally, you just need to go straight ahead, and there's just this one fork where you can go that way or this way. And there's often an enemy in this hallway at higher difficulty, so you can just take the opposite way of the enemy to avoid them. But it all ends up leading around to this spot right here, as you can see. And then there's these bathrooms that actually are a straight shot through as well. Again, quite a few rooms around here if you want to try looting or anything, but eventually you're going to want to head to the production line here, which is the objective completed. And this is where the real trial, the trial proper starts. Now it's important to know, of course, there is a regroup button over here that we need to press. Talking about regroup buttons more as well in other trials, in earlier videos. It is important to know, once you press that button, you are going to be trapped in this relatively small area until you complete the tutorial objective. So there's this door that will not open. This door will be blocked with red bars, and you will not be able to leave. And there's just this small room over here, this small area, and then the upstairs area, which is also rather small, that doesn't open until you hit the button. So just make sure you're aware of that at least. It can be very important to know for certain variators like Cold Snap or Jaeger. That could make things very difficult and scary in a small space. So just be aware that when you hit this button, you will be trapped in here. And of course, we're going to be smashing the like button. Don't forget down below. And we can say, of course, hello to our friend the Deviant, who is going to be the victim of the trial, the main victim. Once you hit the button, he will get put in front of the whatever this thing is. I don't even know. And your current objective is to unlock the security system. And this whole apparatus right here will be repeated 2 more times in the trial. So this is A, there's also a B and a C version later on. And they all work the same way. They first of all need a key, which will, in this case, it says where we can find it right there. There will be different places to find the key hints in the other areas, but it needs a key, and then it also needs a box to be put on the conveyor belt. However, in this tutorial, you don't get the box information, which will show up on the screen, until you put the key. So to get the key, it does say location is in the control room. Control rooms are upstairs, according to the signs. Again, very, very useful to look around and be observant for signs in this game. They are incredibly helpful. And as you see there, right when we come up here is control room A. There's also a conveyor belt here. These things will be important later. And the storage room is behind the staircase there. Well, let's head into control room A. And as you'll see right on the console here is the key. So we can grab the key. Key A, and of course these are the same keys as on like police station, on kill the snitch, on cancel the autopsy. They're the very same sort of keys that just go into your key item inventory and don't actually require inventory space. So yeah, we're gonna now just bring that on downstairs to unlock the security system, complete that objective. Gooseberry will usually be out and about in this area on higher difficulties, so you need to be aware about that, potentially avoiding her. So we open it up, our friend goes inside of the apparatus, and now we need to find wax boxes in storage, and you'll see the screen next to the door that he just went in turns on and shows a number and a letter. So this is box A, and the number is 743. It could be any number from like 1 to 999 pretty much, as far as I understand. And you just need to remember that and go up to the storage room and get that box. However, the conveyor belts are going to be involved in getting this box down, because you might have noticed there is a heavy object gate blocking the stairs. So to get it down, we'll have to use this conveyor belt, which is rather long, and the conveyor belt system in this trial can be a little bit confusing the first time you do it, so I'll try to explain that a bit, but it's the same general concept as the first conveyor we saw. Now, coming into the storage room, there's 2 storage rooms actually. There's this one, and then if you go through this hallway, there's an additional one, which again links up to the other area right here. This whole area is pretty small. There's not much to talk about with it. But yeah, we are looking for A743. However, the B and C boxes that we'll need later are also here. So just look around. It can be on many or any of the shelves in either of the rooms. And of course, the first box will be a wax box. You can kind of see the different types of boxes, even though the letter is obviously different. That's a very easy one to see. It can be just easier to quickly identify them at a glance based on their look. So the A boxes have the big red wax square on them. The B boxes are mostly just white, and then the C boxes have the blue borders and say lubricant on them. So they're pretty easy to identify at a quick glance. We're going to take this box here and bring it over to the conveyor belt and drop it on. And then we have to head downstairs to pick it up. And the pickup spot is right next to the conveyor. Sorry, not the, well, yeah, I mean, this is also a conveyor, so it is right next to, oh, look at that. It's Bibzuda pinged in assembler. What the glitch is that? Okay. But anyway, as you see, our box is coming down here, and you really don't want to miss the box in this case, because if you miss it, This conveyor belt will take a very long time to come back around because this very same conveyor is used to get boxes through this door as well. If you can see that, they also will go through there, and then there's another pickup point over there where you can pick them up. And then they'll wrap all the way back around, and strangely, so let's say, let's just demonstrate it, might as well, because the handling and the management of the conveyors is what's going to influence your time and completion of this trial so much. So you'll see the box will go through, but so if this happens, if you were interrupted by Gooseberry or for some reason you couldn't get the box, what you should do is come around to the back, because there's actually another pickup spot in the back here, which is a little bit strange, but it is right here. And as you can see, here comes the box. That is the other pickup spot on the other side of the door. So we can sort of save it and not waste as much time by grabbing it from here. If you miss it there, it's going to go all the way back up and around and just come all the way back around and show up at that entrance and then go back around and then come down. I'm not going to demonstrate that, but if you miss it from there, you have to try and grab it again from up front here. And so that's pretty much the A conveyor and how it all comes together. And then you bring it over, you plop it onto the spot here, and that completes the tutorial version of this. Now you will need 2 boxes in teams for that, which is really annoying. And in teams, the number will it'll only show you 1 number at a time. It'll then show you the second number after you've put the first box in. So it's incredibly annoying. I guess I should have mentioned when I was talking about the boxes, if you pick up a box that is not one of the boxes you need, it will explode, dealing you either health or sanity damage. I think it's random. I'm not going to demonstrate it since I think that's pretty clear, but just basically don't go randomly picking up boxes. There's also a chance that the box will not blow up even if it's not one of the ones you need, which can be kind of devious because maybe you accidentally picked up a box that was wrong and it didn't blow up, so you're like, oh, I got lucky and picked up one of the boxes I need, let me throw it on the conveyor and bring it through the trial. That might not even be the case. You might not even necessarily be correct in that. So don't go randomly picking up boxes. They will damage your health or sanity potentially. And we do have someone coming out here, Gooseberry. But basically, once you've completed that first assembler, I guess is what it's called, you will basically have access to the whole map at this point, except for the ending areas. This door will open back up. You can go back out there, and then these heavy object gates will be opened as well, and you can explore the rest of the... What? Yo, she saw me there? All good. So yeah, this is the kind of thing, like, I'm going to come over here because I know there's another staircase through this door. This is just the kind of map navigational thing that you'll have to come to learn as you play the trial. But now we are now on the other side of the gates, and you can see this is where the conveyor shows up, and this is where we're going to need to pick up boxes B and C once we find them. So usually what I will do is run through this whole area. So once the A box is done, I'll come through here and I'll check the next assembler because that will have the box number. It is B633, and then you can also see that the key location says it's in control room B, but that's not actually the case. We'll see that in a second. So B633, and then we keep coming through. There's the next assembler here, C447. So we have both box numbers that we need, and we'll have to go get those from storage. And then you basically just keep going. It's just a straight shot. Keep going ahead up these stairs and quickly hide from the pusher. Quickly hide from the pusher. But yeah, up these stairs, and then you want to basically reverse your steps and go back this way, because up on the second floor is where the control rooms are. You can see this says control room C, so we can find our key location in here, and it says that the key is in the archives. That's where our C key is. And I will... let's actually just go do the boxes first, and then we'll go up and talk about the keys, because I don't want to sort of interrupt myself and talk about the alarm doors until we are done with this part. I did not mean to throw that. Alright, that should have successfully gotten rid of him.
Not cool, my man. Not cool.
My fault, bro. My fault. Okay. So yeah, that's what I would do, is I would go and then I would check the key locations and get the keys and then end up back over there and do the boxes. But we're just going to do the boxes first to keep it simple. So C 447 as we know, and then B was 633. So yeah, just remember those numbers and then we can head back here to the storage room. Same exact one you got the other boxes from. And you can look for the 2 boxes you need. And I would personally recommend always doing both at the same time. It can save you time from getting, you know, basically you're either it's gonna be an all or nothing type thing where you get both boxes off the conveyor or you have to wait for them to do another lap. You're not gonna have to deal with 2 separate instances of that possibility, I guess is the thing. So we have our C box right here, 447. We can bring that over to... Careful. Bring that over to the conveyor, and I would recommend just dropping it on the ground. Don't actually put it on the conveyor until you are ready with both boxes. And I assume our B box is going to be in here, and there it is. B633. So I bring that over as well. And then quickly drop both of them onto the conveyor. And we basically want to go down to the area that I showed earlier where we will pick them up. And this is where you kind of want to try to be stealthy. Like, you could stay back here and wait for them. Gooseberry, please don't see me. There's also a barrel right here that people often like to hide in while they wait for the boxes, which can be a good idea. Looks like Gooseberry's going away, so we should be okay. But here come our boxes right here, and we want to pick them up off of the conveyor here. And again, if you do miss them, it is going to be kind of fried, and they're going to take a very long time to come back. However, one thing you can do if you want is reset them to be a little bit quicker. You can grab them from here and then bring them back around and put them on the conveyor there to send them immediately through instead of having them go all the way up and around. But just try and grab them on the first try if you can. So our B box we can then pick up and just bring over to the assembler thing and put it on the conveyor, and that's that done. So there we have it. You will also need 2 B boxes in groups, 2 A and B, only 1 C regardless. So now we have the C box here, and the C box needs to go into Sector C, which requires another conveyor to get through. There used to be a way you could skip part of this with some cheeky positioning, but they have patched that. So we are going to have to do it the normal way. Basically, the conveyor for the C area is right over here, and there's just one spot to put it down. And uniquely for this one, you're going to have to go up to the 2nd floor to get it. As you can see, the conveyor goes all the way up this ramp. So we're going to go back over to the stairs we went up earlier to get up there to grab it. And if you are pretty quick, if you kind of sprint there, you can make it before it arrives. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait for a pretty long time for it to cycle around. But we're going to sprint straight over there and hopefully not get spotted by Gooseberry on the way. You don't have to be super fast, but ooh, I don't know if we're going to make it. Take a right here. We will. So you don't have to be like lightning fast, but you have to be pretty quick. And we arrived just in time to grab it off the conveyor. So as you can see, we were just down there. You come around, go up the stairs, and then down the catwalk here and into here to grab it. If you miss it, there's no real recourse. It'll just go all the way back around again. There's no like shortcut or anything you can do. So yeah. We've got the C box, and what you're going to want to do with this is just jump over this railing. It's perfectly safe from fall damage, although if you land on Gooseberry, I will not take the blame for that. And now you need to get it over to the assembler, because right now we're in Sector D. We need to get through to Sector C, but there are heavy object gates here. The only way to get through is actually through this garage door as well. So you have to lift this garage door to make it through with the C box. And that can be a bit annoying if Gooseberry's in the area, but we can now drop off the C box and have that. Now we're basically done with the boxes and conveyors for this trial. So yeah, hope that made sense. Again, it can be a bit, not even really confusing, but well, it's a little bit confusing, especially if you don't know how to navigate the map quickly, especially if you're getting chased by Gooseberry at times. But But it can also just be annoying not knowing the timings or the, you know, where even the conveyor belt pickup and drop off points are. So yeah, definitely practice makes perfect on this trial. It was one I really didn't like at first, but it's grown on me a bit over time. Now we're going to go get the keys. Now there is, again, one key for each, one for B and one for C. And I would have normally done this already. I would have done this on my way back to the storage room, but we're going to do it now. So we can get our first key location. Again, a key was in the archives. And right here we will see our first instance of these alarm doors. And these are a new mechanic. I'm pretty sure that they don't show up on any of the prior maps that I can think of. So yeah, the alarm doors are these big red doors, and it says, warning, alarm will sound if door is opened. And for the most part, the way they work is when you open it, an enemy will spawn from a nearby EIG, usually a machete grunt or an elite grunt or whatever, a hard grunt. Not giants, mostly, although on some trials they do spawn giants, but most of the time it's a normal grunt. And then they will be around the area, they will search around, but then, importantly, pretty shortly after that, they will leave the trial and never come back. And the alarm doors can only be set off a single time per trial. So the thing that, you know, most of the time you can kind of ignore them. You basically can just run through the alarm door while you're going through this area for the first time, and then leave the area and go do something else, like get the boxes or get the keys, and then next time you come back through, the enemies will be gone and you won't have to worry about them. So yeah, they're pretty basic mechanic in that way. So you can not really have to worry about them being a permanent issue. However, on specifically shut down the factory, the alarm door spawns are permanent. We'll talk more about that on that trial, but most of the time you don't have to worry about the alarm doors that much. They do make a loud noise as well that will attract nearby enemies also, so that's important to know. And you can just go around if you really don't want to set them off for whatever reason. Wow, that is crazy intel, game. Oh my god. Shows me both keys like instantly. What? Yeah, this trial in particular, the alarm doors aren't that much of a time savings. Going around is not that big of a deal, but I usually still just open them because I don't really care. Regardless, up to you if you want to run through them or not. Either way, eventually you can make your way over to Control Room B here. Again, signage, very important. The rooms where the keys are also labeled. We can quickly peek in here to see where our other key is. So our keys are in the test lab and the archives, even though the game already showed me them for some reason. So we can head into here, and generally, including this room here on the left, which is maintenance, the keys will be in this area, sort of in this, on this left side corners area. There's a lot of rooms back here that the keys could be in, but they'll be in one of these rooms somewhere. So you technically don't need to look at the signs, but it is usually very advisable, especially on higher difficulties where you don't have intel, because they can be very, very, very hard to actually see if you don't know what room they're in. Like if you try to search a room that the key is in, even though you don't know it's in there, you could very easily not find it. But yeah, so we're gonna go and get the keys. This area can be a little bit maze-like and confusing. Oh, they actually have a Night Hunter here on standard. Okay. This area can be a little bit maze-like and confusing if you're not familiar with it, so it'll take some time to get used to. I'm gonna open this alarm door. So you'll see it goes off, and then here comes an enemy spawning in. So that's how they work, and they can be reclosed and they will not like rearm. You can also disable them with the jammer, which can maybe be a good idea. I mean, it's not really worth it. Again, the enemies are temporary and aren't that big of a deal. We can grab our first key here. That was the archives, of course. You can see signs on all the doors, which shows where what the room is. Helps a lot. Call centers right here, for example. Test lab is going to be right here on our right. And the intel was actually kind of comical that it showed us that so quickly. But now we have both the B and the C key, and we are good to continue the trial back downstairs. But I will quickly show what I would normally do. Normally I would have run through there, opening all these alarm doors, getting all the clues for the keys. And then, wow, bro pre-fired me. And then you actually end up back here at the storage. So if you ran that same route where you go along the downstairs collecting the box numbers and then upstairs doing the keys, you can arrive back here and then do the boxes while you already have the keys and go onwards from there. So that is my general recommended pathway through the trial, and it's been good for me. And now that we have the keys, we can basically come back down to these assemblers and throw the keys in. Oh shit! Yo. Okay. Once all the keys and boxes are done, it will take some time, especially if you, like me, didn't put the B key in. He'll have to go through the entire B sequence and the entire C sequence and then arrive here at this cranking station. As you can see, the assembly line's moving on. He's going to end up in this inside of the C assembler and then come out into sector D here where we'll have to turn the crank. And this works very similar to a lot of final trial objectives. Basically very similar to, or almost the same as the Vindicate the Guilty finale, right? This is basically the same as the Vindicate the Guilty finale crank. You just have to crank this thing until it reroutes the production line, is basically what it says you're doing. Although this isn't the final objective, it is again very similar to Vindicate, and the pitcher is just a scumbag asshole. Okay, he's leaving. Good. Must have heard me talking shit about him. So what you can do here is a blind is very good here, but you basically just have to crank this for a certain amount of time. Just sit here and hold it. Makes very loud noise, and you crank it until the objective completes. It's not really a very obvious indicator, at least not that I've seen, of how close you are to being done, but there you go. You get an idea of it, a sense of how long it will take. And oftentimes a giant will come out on higher difficulties, but blind can be helpful for you there. And once you've completed that cranking, you then need to come all the way down here, as following the production line, and head over to the incinerator, which is where the finale of the trial will take place. And you have to go through one of two garage doors to get here. So we're going to go through this garage door. And this finale is most definitely the most complicated finale so far. Probably prior to this, I guess, would have been Vindicate, since you had to go do the panels first. But this finale involves this furnace pump station right here. And you basically need to use this by clicking on it and then clicking again to pump it to sort of increase the flames and cook the deviant here. However, in order to use it, you need to first turn a valve to increase the pressure or whatever. So you see, pump is disabled, open the pressure valve. There's a pressure gauge here that is at 0. And the valve is, you can follow this pipe to get to it. It is basically in this back area here, where again, you need to open another garage door. Although there are some barred doors once you get through that you can open to get back to this area and more easily access it. So we're going to head into here. We'll talk more about how the pump works when we get back here. You can follow this pipe. I usually don't. I usually kind of just will immediately go over here to the right. And there's a grunt that we can jump past. I'll usually go over here to the right immediately and just open this barred door to give us access back to the main area. Just to be, so we don't have to worry about using the garage ever again. And then I will normally just look around for the valve sort of on my own, because I know where they can be a lot of the time. The ideal situation is when it is very close to one of the barred doors. We have our valve right here. It can be pretty much anywhere in this entire dark basement section. So it can be in like any of these rooms. It can be, and this area can be confusing until you get used to the layout of it. So just, play it enough to do that, I guess. But again, it can be in pretty much any area of this basement. We are again in the basement, actually, and this room right here is the one that I said could be the secret room. You can see, actually, that's where we were at the beginning of the trial. There's the compactor and where we got the key, etc. You understand, and that's why you can look into here to see if it's the secret room. But over here, we're actually at the other barred door. So So we can open that up. And actually, like, the valve could be like right there or right there, I think, and that is ideal because then you're obviously very close to the pump. Because the way the valve works is you can turn it however much you want. You can turn it once, or I guess up to 5 times, or is it 4 times? However many times you want, up to the maximum. And that determines how much time you have to pump, because once you, I guess we can go turn the valve to show this. And these valves work the exact same in terms of noise and mechanics as the grind the bad apples valves. So they are identical sort of in the way you just have to hold them and then turn them. As you can see, it goes up from 100 to 500 based on the number of times you turn it. So if we turn it once here up to 100 and then let it go, you can see it slowly starts decreasing. And once it hits 0, the pump will no longer be usable like it was at the start. So the amount you turn it affects how much time you have to pump. This is why it can be so useful to have a blind mine. You put that down on the pump, and then you can basically guarantee that you can pump the entire time you're there for, you know, and be safe from enemies, because getting interrupted while you have done the valve and still have to pump can be annoying. Depending on if there's any enemies nearby that hear you, you can turn this valve as many times as you want. You have to turn it in solo at least to 200 to complete it. And you also have to be very quick if you, like, this is pretty far away. So I would probably try to turn this 3 times if I were on like a psycho trial and trying to do this A+. I'm going to turn it twice and just see if I can showcase that. So turn it twice. Also, importantly and interestingly, if you are holding the valve like this, it doesn't go down. So if your teammates are doing the pump, you can just hold the valve and not turn it and make noise, and just you won't have to do, you don't have to worry about it. There are, I think, 2 valves and 2 pumps in groups, so that's important to note as well. But 200 is the minimum you need to turn it to be able to complete it. And you can also use this tech to pump more quickly by letting go of the pump immediately after pumping it. So you click to pump, click pump, then let go by pressing S, and then just spam click to get back on it more quickly. This does allow you to pump quite significantly faster than you can if you do it normally. And as you can see, it is now below 100, so we wouldn't have made it otherwise, but since we got it to 200, one more pump will finish them off, so we can do that. And that is the end of our friend the Deviant here, sadly. Okay, Gooseberry. So yeah, that is how the finale works. The timing with Gooseberry can vary. We got rather fortunate she didn't show up, but that's why blind can be so good, because if Gooseberry does show up, you don't have to miss out on your valve time that you turned to pump it. Now, if you do, for whatever reason, not get the, aren't able to finish him in that amount of time, I don't know how much you have to turn it to be able to do it in a group. In a group, it's much slower, but in the teams, or in solo, it progresses quite quickly. You can do it in just 200 valve pressure. But again, you can just repeat that process. You go back, turn the valve some more, come back, pump some more. You can just go back and forth as needed if you don't get like the 1 cycle kill like I did there. So it is a little bit complicated, and it has those 2 steps as the finale, but it is it's not that difficult at the end of the day, especially because if you are in big trouble and like someone like this guy is spotting you and chasing you, you can use these barred doors to your advantage very easily. Just come in here and close it, and he immediately gives up. Same can be said if Gooseberry is chasing you out there. So it's not that difficult to avoid and dodge your enemies. There's also a tech, I believe, to get Gooseberry, because Gooseberry basically will spawn in to this finale and then be around for a bit and then leave. She doesn't stay around the entire time, which is unique, fairly unique in this case. Usually the prime asset is either there or not at all. But in this case, she will come around and leave sometimes. Or she'll come around sometimes and then leave pretty quickly. What you can do is, and this is the way this is the barred door we looked at the very beginning of the trial that we can use to get out. You can come up here and open this barred door, and then I believe sometimes Gooseberry will spawn from that gate, and then you just close this, bar it up, and you can go do the pumping and the objective while you know she's not going to spawn in on you because she's out here. That is possible, so that's just another thing to potentially make the finale easier for you. But in my experience, it's not the most difficult finale because even if you get unlucky and Gooseberry spawns on you right when you start pumping, as long as you're not in a hurry and not trying to rush things, you can just go back and do the valve again, and then maybe next time you come around, she won't be there and you can pump it. Because it's totally different than other finales where the prime asset is around the whole time and you have to play around that because, again, she will leave often. So we can come out here and head back to the shuttle for the finale. Now this timing works out pretty good since Gooseberry just walked away, but Gooseberry and a giant will be around here, I guess, even on standard, so a pretty difficult finale, but you need to come back to the same shuttle that you started the trial on and hit the button to get out of there. Now you can kind of wait for Gooseberry to walk away, wait for the giant to walk away, or you can take it a bit more aggressive. There are a lot of cars around this area that you can use to juke around and avoid the enemies generally pretty easily, so I usually take it pretty quick. But that's pretty much it for Pervert the Futterman. Again, it's been a little while since I did one of these videos, so I hope this was along the lines of how I did them before. I tried to explain everything as usual. 41 minutes, pretty long for that trial, but we were talking about everything. And we did get damaged once by like a tiny tick of pitcher fire, I think. But anyways, that is pretty much it for Pervert the Futterman. Definitely a trial that can be very difficult at first, but gets a lot easier as you do it more. That's the same thing with every trial, but this is probably the one that I would say has the most impact of that we've done so far. Maybe kind of Vindicate the Guilty, but I do think this one can cause a lot of issues with the conveyor belts and things, and the finale is a bit weird. That maybe the tips will have helped you out a little bit, and the walkthrough. So I hope so. But yeah, now we have the Toy Factory MKs, which it has some pretty unique ones. So this should be interesting to get into. I'll see you guys for the first one of those. The first MK that we're going to be looking at is going to be Crush the Toys. I do omit one word from this and the following MK, just in case of YouTube flagging me for whatever reason, even though of all the stuff going on, that would be the last thing. But for some reason, that is the worst thing that exists in the world, according to, censorship or whatever the hell you want to say. Regardless, not really trying to get into that discussion, but that it's just the truth and the reason why I do that. Regardless, this trial centers around the conveyor belt mechanic, basically, that was introduced in Pervert the Futterman. This is pretty much the main mechanic in this trial. However, there's also the introduction, I think, of the faulty generators. I'll have to go double check and make sure, but there is an additional new mechanic that we'll be reviewing in this trial for those, and it also has some elements of the black lights, which we found on the courthouse map. So I'll see you guys when we arrive. For loadout on this one, I would recommend just sticking with the standard stun, no dark, smash, boosted. See you guys at the trial. Alright, we have arrived at Crush, and as I think I mentioned during Pervert the Futterman, the MKs on Toy Factory are quite hard to relate to the main map layout, I would say, at least especially at first, because as you'll see here, we are going to come out in a place that will look familiar if you think about it a little bit, but it's a little bit weird with where the shuttle is. So the shuttle right here also we will be returning to leave the trial, so keep that in mind. But we're actually here at the spot where you lift the garage door at the end of Pervert the Futterman. So right here and right here, I think, are where the garage doors are that you lift to go in. It's a little bit of a different looking area at this time, but and obviously, like, this is where you come down from the factory. Like, that is where you turn to the crank up there. So yeah, that can hopefully give you a bit of an idea of where you are. And then this is where, you know, right in there is where you incinerated the Futterman guy. On higher difficulties, there will be a grunt in this area right at the start, so you're not really safe, but I think he doesn't spawn on lower difficulties, so you can loot freely. But basically, the first objective you have to do is just get to the center area, and so this whole trial takes place mostly in the basement. However, there's also a section that's kind of like out back of the factory in an area that is involved in several other MKs as well, which we will talk about. But for the most part, this is in the basement, and it is just an extraordinarily different layout than it was in Pervert the Futterman. We do have like this whole little thing that's blocked in. These were just like windows, and this was more open, with the barred door being where those little flaps are instead. Like, so that's why it's quite transformed in comparison to the prior maps as far as the MKs are concerned. So it is a little bit confusing to sort of describe where things are in relation to your knowledge from Pervert the Futterman. I think I've talked about this enough, but let's go ahead and get in here because the entire basement is pretty much connected, so you wouldn't really be able to say like, oh, this is the part where you did the compactor. I mean, you probably could, but there's also the fact that you obviously explore this whole area in the dark in Pervert the Futterman itself. There's a lot, like the doors and blocked areas are a lot different, so yeah, I'm mostly going to treat this as like a new version of the map. And basically you have one straight long hallway here. There's just one straight shot, and you have to go into this main sort of hub area with a compactor, which you will recognize from the beginning of Pervert the Futterman. However, one nice thing to note is this little crawl space right here. If this door is either yellow bar blocked or padlocked, you can lose the Jaeger in here, which is kind of nice, but it's not that big of a deal because you can actually lose her with the heavy object gates whenever you want, as I demonstrated, I think, on Cleanse the Orphans, or maybe I did that in my Mirrored Weekly, I don't even know. But you can bring a box up to these heavy object gates and close it with them, and if the Jaeger's on the other side, because that's the only way through, she will leave the trial instead. But anyways, the whole trial centers around this central area, and you'll see here we have these letters on these things, and there's one box in each area, and as this never goes up, like even with 4 people you only have one box in each area, so it's the same objective every time. And you'll see some signs here. This way is to D and E, and this way is to B and C, and the sector we're in right now is sector A, which is the tutorial of this objective. You'll also see the conveyors here. There's a pickup spot there and a pickup spot there, and uniquely to this trial, which didn't occur on Pervert the Futterman, there are boxes already on these conveyors. But these boxes are basically decoys, they're fakes, and they're the same as boxes that you would pick up in Pervert the Futterman that were not the ones you needed for your conveyor, and they will blow up and either damage you or make you lose some sanity. So you got to be a little bit careful about when you place your box on the conveyor to bring it through to here, that you remember how it looked or where it was positioned. On standard you'll probably have like full intel, but later on you might need to ping it as it goes through to make it more clear, or like put it snuggled up right behind one of the fake boxes. It's also kind of sometimes askew, the box that you put on, although it can vary how much it is or isn't tilted, but we'll talk about that more when we get to actually placing the boxes. First of all, how do we get these boxes? Now, each of these areas, although it doesn't show until we finish the tutorial, each of these areas will have a TV right out front of their door, which will have the box number on it. So we have the first one here, which is A377. This TV will light up with the D box number. This one will light up with the B box number, and so on and so forth. And the way you need to find the box is, as you can see, these boxes are here, but you can't read any labels on them because you need to activate the black light in the room where the boxes are to see the labels. And to do that, we're going to be using a generator. However, this is a little bit different from generators we've seen in the past. As you can see, it's red, it's already fueled, there's no tinkering to be done, we can just crank it. This is what's known as a faulty generator. And I did go back and check, and this is the first usage of them. This was obviously when they were introduced to us as people who played the game over a long period of time, but it's a little hard to remember sometimes if now prior maps also introduced that mechanic, like how courthouse got sentenced to prosecuted, even though the decoder mechanic came out with Franco's maps. So I just wanted to go back and check. But this is the new mechanic. Basically, how these work is you crank them in the exact same way as a normal generator. So 3 green cranks will start it up. Check out my police station video for full details on that if you need it. But they will then turn on and do whatever they do. So in this case, they will turn on the black light. We'll see them later on the resort, where they will turn on heaters in an area. They're used for some different things sometimes, but in this case, they will turn on a black light somewhere, and that will reveal the numbers on the boxes. So you then need to go to the room where the boxes are. Obviously, this is tutorial, so it's right next to each other, but up ahead in D sector, like the generator is straight ahead, but then the room with the boxes is right there. There's different areas that will be lit up by these generators being turned on. Obviously, it's also very loud, will attract enemies to you and make it difficult to actually collect those boxes. But you then go there, look through the boxes, and find the one that is the number for that section that you have, and you pick it up, and then you need to bring it back here. And again, there's the heavy object gates, first introduced on Orphanage if you need a refresher on how those work. But basically, it just means you can't carry one of these boxes through these doors, so you have to use the conveyors, just like on Pervert the Futterman. So we're going to start this up, and then, of course, the reason that it's a faulty generator is now that it's turned on and you see the pop-up right there, helps me explain it. These will not stay on forever. They will eventually turn off, and then you'll have to re-crank them if you need the light again. They stay on for quite a long time, and it's definitely long enough to easily do the objective once you're familiar with where everything's located and you are comfortable with the map. So you don't have to worry about that too much, but do be aware if you take forever, it will turn off and you'll need to do it. So as you see, the black light has enabled these boxes to all show their numbers, and we need this box so we can pick it up. And you can also see that since we turned on the generator in here, you can actually, one second. Okay, sorry about that. We got a phone call there, but you could see when I was looking at this conveyor that if you have the generator here on, there's another black light here that will show the labels on the conveyor belt boxes, and all the ones that are traps have a T with a number. So if you are really not sure which box is yours on the conveyor, you can come back in here and start this up, and then you'll be able to see which one is yours on the conveyor. And yeah, so now that once we put this in, the map will open up, and it's basically just 2 pathways branching left and right here, and there's no reason to ever go back this way until the end of the trial. We'll just go right back the way we came to get out. And it's just the same as putting the compactor items in on Pervert the Futterman. Slide the door open, slam it shut, and that will do that. And now, as you can see, we have this open up. And part of a strategy I usually do on this trial is Gooseberry will usually spawn right away, at least on high difficulties. Turns out this time it was the pitcher, but she'll spawn on either this side or that side. And actually we can hear her spawning here over on the B side. There she is down there. And I'll usually go the opposite direction from which she spawns in. Now the pitcher is this way, so we kind of have a lose-lose situation here, but we'll go this way anyway. And you can see the TVs have turned on, and we have D24. In this section. Now, a big part of this trial and completing it is knowing where the generators and toy box rooms are. And you can use signs for that. Toy storage signs in particular are useful to point you to where the toys are. Sectors D and B are pretty straightforward, whereas C and E have a bit more nuance to their box locations and how you want to approach them. So yeah, we need to kind of chill, because again, these generators are, as usual, loud and will attract enemies. And Gooseberry will pretty much be roaming all over the place in this trial. She will be constantly in the trial and will be going back and forth, you know, coming through this middle room often. And you do need to be wary of her when you are trying to grab boxes off the conveyor. That's an important thing, because she can very easily interrupt you. And as a part of the reason for that, I like to wait until I have both boxes from a side before putting them on this conveyor, and then trying to grab them both off at the same time, so I don't have to deal with 2 windows. But we're going to crank this, And for Sector D, the toy storage is right here towards the middle area. It's like right in this room, and then also through the crawl space. So we can look through here and find our box. We found it very quickly, but just to showcase, you can see there's another full room with boxes potentially just anywhere on shelves or anything like that. So what I'll do is I'll bring this over and just drop it on the ground right here, because I also want the E-box before we go ahead and put things on the conveyor. And you'll see here, this area out the back is Section E, and this has a little raised platform, and this is kind of like the loading dock of the toy factory in a way. That's how this works out. And you can see right through here is where you crank for Pervert the Futterman. So that can kind of give you an idea. This right here, there's the staircase up to the catwalk. You might remember this whole area from Pervert the Futterman. So we're out back in this loading dock, which is not, this area is not present at all in Pervert the Futterman, but it is very involved in many MKs. And I forget what our box number was, so I have to go back and check. E601. And this sector is pretty unique in that there are 3 box locations, and they're in each of these trucks. So you'll see there's boxes there, there'll be boxes in that truck over there, and there'll be boxes in this truck here, and your box can be in any one of those trucks. And there's usually a giant out here on harder difficulties, which will be very annoying. You kind of have to hope they go over here to this area, which is known as the break room, and that will prevent them from interrupting you once you crank. But it's a very open and annoying area, and it can be a little bit difficult to do if there are enemies nearby. Seems like we don't have any, so we're just going to crank the generator here, and I usually will check this truck first, and then depending on where enemies are, I could check either of the other 2. I'll check this one next. And we did get our box, E601. Again, it can be any one of those. And obviously, if you're still needing the basics of the basics, you will want to check out Police Station, because that's where we did talk about things like heavy objects and what those are. But I'm kind of trying to make these sort of more coherent into one series, as opposed to each video talking in so much depth about the very, very basic mechanics. Now the thing is, you do still need to do a conveyor belt to get this through to D sector, and then put that on the conveyor belt that takes it to the middle. Gooseberry's leaving, so we can grab it. In this case, the conveyor belt is over here in the place that says toy conveyor on it right there. So you might have seen it when we came in. The pickup spot is over there. So the area over by the break room on that side is pretty much unused unless you need to go there for secondaries or to hide. We're going to go ahead and throw the box onto that conveyor. And it's just a straight shot. I think the pusher is here. It's just a straight shot down the way to here. So you can hide sort of in these back little spots and wait for your box to come by and then go over and grab it. Again, very similar to Pervert the Futterman. And that's something you kind of want to learn as to where you can hide safely to avoid getting spotted before your box arrives. And now, again, I'm just going to quickly mention for the map layout. This is like the only area you need to worry about, but there is this whole other side to the map, which includes this laundry room, which will be more relevant on later trials. And you can also enter E sector from this way, so it's good to know these map layouts, but you'll become pretty familiar with the Toy Factory basement in general from all the MKs that are on it, even if they're very different in between, depending which one you get. So Gooseberry's there, so I'm going to quickly go ahead and place the boxes. And as you can see, if I place them at a bit of an angle, they'll be quite askew on the track itself. And that makes it very easy for me to identify, like, this is clearly a trap box because it's perfectly straight. And then this one's all tilted, so I know for sure it's one of my boxes. And then the next one we know we put in between. And so that's very useful to do if you have time, is to try to make them tilted as much as possible. And that makes it easy to see. And putting both boxes on at the same time is very nice, because then you can just grab them both as long as you aren't interrupted. And yeah, that's a pretty solid method, in my opinion, to get the trial done most easily. Now I am going to showcase this. You can it's often worth it to keep at least one box outside of the compactor, so you can do this. You can close this door to prevent anybody from coming through, including people like the Jaeger. It's a very nice aspect of these heavy object gates when they are the only entrance and exit to an area. So we're going to do that. Gooseberry will then go somewhere else in that area. We can drop this box off, but we'll leave the other one on the floor just in case.
3,
And as you can see, once you put a box in the compactor, the TVs for that box will turn off, and the number will go down to 0. The light will turn green. Several indicators to show you that. But now we just have B and C box left to go, so let's head to this side of the map, which is B465, and this one has the toy storage right through this crawl space. That's where the boxes are. They're all in this one room. There's a door to it there and back there. And then the generator, which you can also follow the wires from the room that connect to the black light back to the generator, but the generator is just through this crawl space and across this room. So it's not too far away and isn't the worst little navigation to do. So we're gonna head back in, crawl through the crawl space and look for our box. There's quite a few boxes in this room. 465 is what we need. And again, you have a lot of time to do this. The generators take quite a while to turn off, especially if you just go straight to the area. And we have the picture here, so I'm gonna drop our box right there, but the conveyor belt for this box is right there. That's where you need to drop it to send it to the middle. But we're gonna go get the C box before we do that. And so we're gonna head over to Sector C, which is this way, 286. And Section C is probably the hardest one in terms of learning it and figuring out where your box is, because there's often a grunt back here, and there's 2 rooms which have boxes. There's one over there, which is the toy workshop, and then this room right here, which you can enter from the other side, or there's a co-op door here, also has boxes in it. And I know I read the box number out loud, but I totally forgot it instantly. 286. We have the picture. And your generator is right here in the middle of the area, which is rather exposed and will often get you spotted. So that is worth noting. Just gotta wait for the stupid ass picture to leave us alone. But yeah, usually I will check this room first because there's a window often that you can jump into, and then go and check the other room. But you can also, what you can do is, like, if it's very spooky, you can, even without Smash, like peek into this room from the windows here and see the boxes, although it's a bit blurry and hard to see, kind of. I don't see our box there. But now what we can do is also loop around and go into the other room from here. Again, the map knowledge and learning of where the rooms and generators are is kind of the key for this trial. The actual objective is not that complicated, especially if you utilize the strategies I've talked about to manage the box fakes and not get faked out by them in the middle. Important to note also that the conveyor belts that lead from C into B and E into D, basically the second conveyor belt that we used on the other side, you know, the one that was the long one that was straight down the ramp. Neither of those have any fakes on them, so you don't have to worry about there being fakes on these conveyors. So that's good to know. Like, this conveyor we're about to use does not have any fakes. The conveyor for C is right over here. And this one is very short. Like, the pickup spot is right there. But if you are very quick, you can make it there before it passes by. So I will always try to place it down and then just immediately run. There's a window there that can sometimes be open, but even without that, if you jump this conveyor, you can make it just in time to pick it up immediately. If you miss it, it's not the end of the world. The conveyor is, again, rather short, and it will come back around pretty soon. Now our last thing we need to do is bring these 2 boxes through to the compactor. And again, the drop-off spot is right here in Sector B. I'm going to wait for the next fake box to come around, just to make it maximally easy for me to identify, because I know that I put my 2 boxes right behind a fake box. And again, in standard, you can press tab to get the objective info, and it'll show you the boxes anyway. But if we're quick enough, we can get through here and pick them up immediately. If you have to wait an extra rotation for either of these 2, it will take a little bit of time. It'll be pretty slow, so just be aware of that. But now we can drop off our boxes, and that's pretty much it. We just need to head back to the shuttle. So not too complicated of an MK. Again, the more you play it, the easier it'll get. Very similarly to Pervert the Futterman, just because of how learny it kind of is in terms of where the objective boxes are. And then also just, it takes some time to learn how to properly deal with the conveyors. And then we just run straight back the way we came, very simply, to the shuttle to get out. And again, on higher difficulties, there will be grunts much more often. There'll be a grunt out here, or maybe a large grunt will also spawn. Maybe gooseberry will spawn, but Oh yeah, Gooseberry spawned way over there, so she's a bit slow to the late to the party here. But we can leave with that. And that was yeah, that was Crush the Toys. And now we're going to be moving on to the other version of the toys, which is, in my opinion, a more interesting trial, even if it's just because the objective is kind of cool. But yeah, this trial will feel very difficult at first, but again, especially as you learn, will get easier. And I think Toy Factory in particular has a lot more of a learning curve, I guess, than the other maps, if that makes sense. So yeah, hope that helps you out. We'll move on to the next trial. Next up, we have Incinerate the Toys, which is a very similar MK in terms of the map layout, although it's divided a bit differently. There's now 2 halves of an environment instead of the one full layout of Crush. However, this is an interesting MK because it is one of the very few, alongside, I believe, only Release the Prisoners and Seize Narcotics, which has multiple spawn points. So there are 2 different spawn points on this one instead of the 4 of the police station MKs, and if you are in a group of 4, you will have 2 people at each spawn point. In a group of 3, it's 2 and 1. Someone gets left alone in the cold, which is sad. In a group of 2, you will each spawn at one side. And in solo, it's a 50-50 chance for which side you get. So that is obviously going to be part of the learning experience of this trial, is learning both spawn points and the different things to know about each of them. I'm not going to play the trial twice to go over that. It's just something you have to learn. I will peep into the other side that I don't spawn in just to showcase that it's got similar things going on in it, I guess. But yeah, Incinerate is pretty cool. The MK revolves around pushing a cart, which is very similar to how pushing the snitch works on Kill the Snitch on Police Station. So you can look at that if you want full breakdown of how this objective will work. It's basically the same exact thing, pushing something along a track, kind of again similar also to the boat on Grind the Bad Apples. But we're going to jump into this one. Standard setup would probably do you just fine here, although I have heard people who like to bring X-ray to find the keys more easily. There are keys involved in this trial, which it can be nice to have X-ray to find, but not really essential. So yeah, otherwise I would stick with the standard setup. See you guys at Incinerate. Alright, we've arrived here at Incinerate, and again, there are 2 spawn points. There's one that is, like, I guess the front of the factory, which is a new area that I don't think we've seen before, although it might relate to somewhere on Pervert the Futterman. Or maybe it is, like, the spawn, kind of the spawn of Pervert the Futterman. I don't know. Well, I'll have to look into it a little bit when we get out there, if we do get that one. The other one is the loading dock, which we first saw on Crush, which was Sector E on Crush. The loading dock is the other spawn. Let's see which one we get. Let's hop into the trial. Again, 50-50 chance in the solo game. And we actually did get the loading dock. So this is the area that we just saw for the first time on Crush, and it is basically the exact same layout, and we're pretty much going to be doing the entirety of the MK, at least from our perspective, in Sector D area, although it is a bit expanded with an additional bathroom and a couple of more hallways. So yeah, basically you'll see a nice little group of mannequins pointing you the way to go, and this is the cart that we're going to be pushing into the incinerator. You see our objective is to push carts into the incinerator in a group of more than 1 person. You'll have 2 carts, 1 on each side, and the big thing about this trial is the track itself is quite randomized. Not like on Kill the Snitch. The Kill the Snitch track is set in stone. This track is very randomized. It could have gone to the right here and gone down this way. It can go, there's like a bunch of different places where it can turn any which way, and that's kind of an interesting aspect of it, and it's a lot of RNG on how difficult it ends up being, because certain ways will lead you more immediately past enemies, certain ways will lead you to places where there are no enemies. So that's just RNG. There's no real way to affect that, but still worth noting. And again, this pushing activity works the very same as it does on Kill the Snitch. It is very loud, and also will you can go faster by sprinting, and just in general will make it a lot more difficult. I did not think a giant would spawn on standard. That giant spawns much more quickly on higher difficulties, but they do spawn on standard after a bit of time, I guess. And we will eventually, after pushing the cart a ways, come to a roadblock, which is to get into basement section B. And there will be a key and a sign telling you where the key is. Or I guess not a key. There will be a lock and a sign telling you where the key is. And so this is very similar to how the keys worked on Pervert the Futterman itself. You will need to go read the sign that is next to the door and then go find the key and open it. It's just laying around in whatever room the sign says, and so that there's no corpse to loot from or anything like that. And so that's part of the learning process of this trial, is learning where each of these rooms are. This is the break room. The key could have also been in there, which is dock supplies, and it could have been in there, which is the distribution center. We got it in the break room, which is right here, so we can go look for it. And there it is right there on the table. Can be pretty much anywhere in these rooms. There are many, many spawn points for the keys in each of the rooms, and that is, I guess, another learning aspect of the trial. We can come open the lock, as is the case with all the normal keys in the game, and that will open the shutter and allow access to continue pushing the cart. And again, this track can go all over the place. It could have gone straight there, it could go right here, could turn left, right, wherever. There's really no 100% way of knowing which way it's going to go, but you don't really need to do that. You will be able to just push it and it goes, there's no like skill involved in knowing where to push it. Now, we actually got the other key. Each side basically has two keys. Whoa. There's one key in the back for the first section, and then once you get into this area, which you might recognize right here is where the faulty generator was on Crush. Once you get into this area, there's one more key, and that key will open the door to the incinerator, basically. So there's two keys on each side, and they can be in any one of the rooms. So you can see this is labeled as laundry. We found our key in the electrical room, so we'll see that sign when we go over to the door. There's recalled products, there's the freight elevator. There's a lot more rooms in this second area. And actually, if you look through here, this is where we ran up for Crush, and that's the other side of Incinerate. That is, we'll see how to get there. There's also like inventory records. There's the bathroom over here. So this is kind of where it's expanded a little bit past the laundry. There was a wall here on Crush, but now instead you can go through, and there's this whole extra room, which is again a bathroom. And then if you follow the track, it's nice, just like in Kill the Snitch. If you get lost, you can follow the track, and that will lead you always to either the cart or to the door that leads to the next section. So be sure to do that if you do get lost. Also worth noting that when we used the key, it did also open the other garage, which was closed, so you have access to both doors if need be. See if we can push the cart a bit here. Obviously, rigs can be very helpful to help you push. Blind can even be decent for getting the adrenaline. Adrenaline very useful for pushing things. And as I probably mentioned on Kill the Snitch, slow pushing like this is a lot quieter than fast pushing like this. It is maybe not look like it because it's pulsing level 3, but I assure you it is much quieter, lower range, and less audible. So you might want to try doing some slow pushing if you're struggling with getting heard and seen all the time. Now we already have the key, so we don't have much to worry about, but you can do things in any order you want. You could run to the front of the track and go ahead. See, like the pitcher can't even hear us right there. You can run to the front of the track and check where the key goes and go get it. We got shown the key kind of egregiously by the intel from standard difficulty, but that's okay. We got the key for free. But you can do that, or you can push the cart first. Usually I'll try to push the cart as much as possible, but whenever I get like spotted or chased off, then I'll try and go find the key. That seems to be a good way of doing it in my experience. So as you see, we've arrived here at the gate that is now closed, and if we go ahead and use our key that it says was in the electrical room, but we already found it, we are now out here at the incinerator, and this again will be very familiar. Also important to note, we will not be leaving through the same shuttle. We actually leave through the shuttle that we used on Crush to both leave and enter the trial, right outside near the incinerator. So that's the entirety of, I guess, what they call Section B. And once you're out here, you can actually go to the other section, which is Section A, and here Section B also has a barred door if you come through Section A first. So this is basically the entire other half of the map where either you will sometimes get in solo or your teammates will have been if you're doing this in a group. And there will be a key lock with a label here and to open this. However, in solo games, there is no way to open these because you already have like the barred door to traverse through. But again, the track can be coming from any which way and will be going all over the place. And then there's, again, more rooms with labels which can have the keys to open the door to the incinerator. And so, yeah, it's pretty much... oh, you know... I'm honestly, I haven't really tried thinking about it too hard, which, you know, how it works and how it relates to the main trial. But this is like the entrance to the basement of Pervert the Futterman, I guess. And this is like a wall usually. And then the conveyor comes out here, and this is where you drop off for the conveyor. And this room right here is the one that you get the key to the main factory. Yeah. And then this area is here, but then this is not open. Cool. I've never really tried to fully relate the basement of Pervert the Futterman to the basement of the MKs, just because it is a lot different, but that is how it works at the end of the day. And so yeah, again, much of the speed and skill of this trial is knowing where all the rooms are, doll assembly, foreman's office, finding the key, and quickly finding the key, and also being able to push the cart even when you're being harassed by enemies is very important. You know, also being able to lose those enemies quickly, etc., etc. We can also quickly check this barred door, as there is a barred door that also leads to the full outside, to see the other spawn point of this trial, which is right back there. If you can spawn potentially into this area, which is sort of the back, or I guess the front. Yeah, so like, is this where you spawn on Pervert the Futterman? There's no way, right? I mean, I don't think so. Yeah. No, because the basement garage... Well, honestly, I don't know, because the map is just so different, but it doesn't really matter that much. Basically, this area is a kind of an additional loading dock, but I guess kind of a side entrance to the factory, and also has 3 rooms of West Dock offices, maintenance, and foreman's office that will be used to open either one of the, the lock, which will be on either one of these 2 gates. So it's pretty much the mirrored, of course, same setup. But I just wanted to showcase, the entire, I guess, map. And then if your teammates are struggling, that is how you can go help them out, by going through the barred doors once you've completed your side and gotten through to the incinerator. Importantly, you of course don't need to push the cart at all. If you want, you could just find the keys and open up the entire map while the cart is still at its very beginning spawn point, if you're trying to reunite more quickly with your team. That's important to note. But otherwise, we're just going to push the the cart the rest of the way into the incinerator. It could go into either one of these 2 gates, and then the other cart from here will go into one of these 2. And then after a short delay, the gate right here will open up and will let us go and push the button. Gooseberry usually spawns during this time, sometimes from over there. Oh wait, it's a giant. A giant also usually spawns, but eventually the gate will open up and you can run through and hit the button. And then, you have to deal with the giant if he saw you, or maybe you can hide and wait until he's away and then not have to worry about him. Boy, they're just so slow on Not Psycho, it's crazy. And yeah, then the shuttle arrives and you get to leave. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool MK, fairly unique. You don't have a lot of pushing object thing like that, especially for MKs. And it's really cool to have the split spawn. But the objective itself is not that complicated. Just push the cart, use the signs to find the keys and open the doors that are in your way and get that cart pushed all the way to the incinerator. It's a trial that's very speed runnable. You can do it very quickly if you know what you're doing, and I personally enjoy it quite a bit. So hope that helped if you ever struggle, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Alright, so I accidentally queued up the trial, and then I swear I canceled it and was going to try and record, and then it put me into the trial, but we're just going to go with it. The next one we have here is Shutdown the Factory here on the Toy Factory, and this trial is the first MK that uses the upper area of the Toy Factory, which was involved in the keys portion for the most part of the main Pervert the Futterman, but also the main floor which is the part that where you did the boxes and conveyors on Pervert the Futterman. So it's not using the basement, so it's different than the other two MKs that we've just reviewed. It's also an MK where you leave and return, or you come out and return to the same spot. And the main mechanics are the generator switch panels. Garage doors are quite involved. There's also alarm doors, and that's pretty much it, aside from the main gimmick, which is the shutting down, which closes down some doors. So we're going to go out. Standard setup. Good for this trial, I would say. Stun, noise reduction, smash, boosted smash. Very good on this trial for opening up the upstairs area. There's several co-op doors. You'll spawn here at the loading dock, actually, the same as we spawned in on Incinerate, but it is a bit truncated here, as you can see. It's very much different. There's much less area over here. Again, the map is quite transformative, and this small area here is usually safe to loot up, which is nice, even on high difficulties. There's a few crackheads around, so be careful that you don't get smacked, but if you are safe about it, you can pretty much loot up on any difficulty, and there's some good spawns for some throwables and stuff. Break room over there, but we can't go there, because the only way into the factory is through one of two large garage doors. And of course, as we talked about on Pervert the Futterman a little bit, and as we've mentioned with garage doors in the past, we talked a lot about garage doors on Police Station, you can get grabbed from under these, and there is often a giant in this area that will potentially hear you and grab you, so you just need to be aware of that possibility. Listen for them hearing you when you're lifting this, and just be ready to dodge or let it go, or whatever you think is the best to avoid that situation. Again, important to know, you will have to come back to this area to leave, so that is a bit of a concern if you have something like Exit Rush, because you have to lift this garage door to get out, and that can be a lot harder than it seems if you are in an area with enemies that, there's enemies around here that are trying to stop you, you don't have a rig or anything for whatever reason, and say, you can't get out, Exit Rush counting down, you might get killed there, especially if you're in a group and these garage doors take a lot more time to open. Anyways, we are here now in the area. This is where you cranked the crank, whatever, like right here for the end of Pervert the Futterman. And there are basically 4 sectors of the trial here, A, B, C, and D. And this will be also important to know for the later MK of Flatten the Foreman, which uses the same sort of layout but in reverse. Just knowing these sectors, and you can see they're all green right now, and you want to make them red basically by shutting them down. And we start in Sector D, and you can basically do a straight shot down the middle of this trial at the start and get to Sector A. This is always open at the start of the trial and is very nice to do, because the main gimmick of this trial, you have to basically tinker with 2 generator panels, which are just on the wall somewhere randomly, kind of like in Reunite the Family on Orphanage. You have to tinker with 2 generator panels in each section, and then the button will become available, which is on the main floor of the section. So right here is the button for D, and when you press this button, any doors that connect it to another section are basically closed down. So this garage door will close. There's several different areas you can go, like there's one up there probably that would close as well. And that's kind of the main gimmick, is as you're shutting down the factory, it becomes less and less easy to navigate it. And that's where the alarm doors come in. The alarm doors on this trial are the most impactful of alarm doors of any trial in the entire game, because these, once opened, will spawn an enemy that will never leave the trial. So I personally, in solo, especially if I'm doing my no loadout or trying to play safe, I will not open these. Even though it is a bit faster, the addition of an entire full enemy that stays around the entire time is not worth it to me, especially in Sector D, where it will spawn an additional giant who will make it even more difficult than it already is to get out the garage door and leave. So that's pretty much the gimmick fully explained. Usually what I do is go all the way to Sector A and then shut them down in reverse order. So D is the last one I do, which will allow me to then immediately leave once it's shut down. So we're going to do that. Just run straight down the middle here, and you'll see you're going through an area that should be familiar from Pervert the Futterman, and this is Sector A, which is where you did the A box on Pervert the Futterman, so you might recognize that. And each sector's button is mostly in the center of its ground floor. There's B and C are off to the side a bit, but they're not too hard to find. and you can find them by just, you know, looking for their big signs, the lights and whatnot. And if you're new and you haven't done this trial very much, you can follow the wires directly from the button to the respective panels, but as you learn more and become more experienced, you'll be able to shortcut those because there's not a huge number of panel spawns, so you can learn them as far as where the wires go. Like, for example, in Sector A, there's only one panel spawn that can be downstairs, and that would be if the wire goes off to the left here, off to this side. And you can always know, if you see the wire going this way, that the panel, this is just for example, because there's not a panel here in this case, but the panel will always be right there where that poster is, basically. And there's a bunch of different things like that that you can learn for the different sectors. For example, Sector C will always have one panel downstairs and will be in at one of 3 places only. So that's also helpful to know. So yeah, again, very, very small niche things that you will just pick up on the more you do the trial. And it's not really worth going into all the panel spawns in the beginner video. So, but again, important to know that the panels can be up or downstairs in any of the sections, so you need to be aware of that as well. We're going to head upstairs following the wires, and we can see one goes off to the left, so we'll go to that one first because it'll probably be the shortest one, since as we remember from Pervert the Futterman, this is sort of a dead-end area. And eventually the wires will lead to these panels, which should be familiar by now. I broke these down very in-depth in the police station video if you need more info. But basically, the lights in the middle are the flips that you can do. One switch will flip 2 of the switches, and you just need to flip that one and then all the rest, and you'll be done. So as we see, that flipped 1, that one flipped 2 switches, so we can go ahead and do the rest. If I messed it up, or it's all RNG and all luck. So if I just happen to click this one first and then click this one, we saw that that one flipped back off, and now I'm screwed and I can't complete it. But now I'll know that I clicked this one first and then finish it off. So very simple objective. You've probably done it a ton of times up to this point, but I hope that little refresher helps anyone who maybe doesn't know. And then we can pick up the trail of the other wire and find it right here. And again, we can do it rather quickly. Got lucky there again to get it before clicking the one that it flipped as well. Now, as I said, it can be very useful to open the co-op doors. I think there's 3 up here that lead that will make a straight line straight through to the other sectors from the top floor here, and that will not close down once you shut down the sector, so that can be beneficial. But once we hit this button, which is now available because we flipped 2 switches, like this will close and be inaccessible, and so will this. And there's another one upstairs, I think, that will as well. So anywhere that's not the co-op door, one of these alarm doors or a garage over there will not be passable. So we're going to hit it to shut down the area. No idea how Gooseberry saw me, even though I closed the door. But yeah, so we shut down Sector A. That also will turn off some lights in the area as well, especially near the button. And now our only options are to either A, smash the co-op door upstairs, which I can't do because I don't have smash. B, use the alarm door, which I don't like to do because I am afraid of the additional enemy that spawns. But you can do that if you want to go fast. The only other alternative is to use the garage door, and there's a garage door. Basically, each area has an alarm door and a garage door. In this case, alarm doors on the right side, garage on the left, and each time it will switch. So B, it's flipped, and then C, it's the same as this. So that's how you can kind of remember which side it's on, I guess. But we can come over here and miss the duck because I have like my hand like spasmed. We can come over here and this is just a normal garage door as usual. You can open it. It can potentially get you caught out by nearby enemies, but I think is much better than using the alarm door and getting an additional enemy in the trial. And it also is a lot easier on solo, of course, again, compared to groups. Also, I don't usually really go through this methodically. I don't usually go to A, do the panels, shut it down. I'll usually go through the different areas and sort of find as many panels as I can, as easily as I can, because, for example, in the B sector, we have a wire that's going up the stairs in that direction. But we also have one that's going through this door over here. Well, through the window, I guess, more accurately. But Actually, in this case, it doesn't really matter, but in C, it will be an issue because there's only staircases in certain locations. Like, there's a staircase here, which leads us up to the top of B. So that is easy to access. But in Sector C, the staircase is only on the left side, so it can require a long trip to get upstairs and do the upstairs panel. So you don't have, like, you can go do all the panels and then go bop, 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 and shut down all the sections with the buttons. That can be good for maybe saving your time and making it as easy as possible to navigate the map in between panel switches. So that is just important to keep in mind. I'm just doing it this way for showcase purposes. And we found our B panel here, just the same as all the other panels that we have ever done. And so, like, now, because I know Sector C has a downstairs panel, I'll just do this to show, like, sort of, you know, sequence breaking you can do. C always has a downstairs panel in this room, or this room here on my right. We got the one on my right here. And we can do this. So this is like one of the Sector C panels done, and the other one will be upstairs. And we were only able to do that so easily because we haven't shut down Sector B yet, because if we did, that would have shut this garage door, and we wouldn't have been able to come through here and do that in Sector C. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious. Okay, the picture's really right there. Well, we can showcase a bit more of the flexibility if we go over here and use the D sector stairs, and we can do a D sector panel while we're here. Just again, keep an eye out for those wires, and you can do things pretty easily. But we're going to go upstairs. So knowing the map layout helps a ton, as always, but in particular in this trial, especially where the gates are that close and what options you have when things are closed up. But yeah, we're back in Sector C, and I know there's one somewhere upstairs because there always is. C is probably the easiest one to learn, honestly. And now we have both Sector C panels done. And we know that one of the Sector B panels came upstairs from the wire we saw earlier, so we can actually go through to Sector B as well and pick up the trail of the wire from up here and find that panel, which will be the last one for Sector B as well. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the trial. We just have one panel left in Sector D that we haven't done. But it's kind of the same for each sector. You know, you just rinse and repeat and go hit the button, shut it down, and use either the garage or alarm door to get through, or the co-op door if you've smashed it open. So learning that map layout will help a lot. Being able to quickly do the generator panel things that are on the walls can help as well, although they're not that difficult to learn over a brief period of time. And the main gimmick, again, is the shutting down portion. So we press the button, shut down that part of the factory. We're just going to open up this garage door to get through. And we can shut down Sector C as well. And as you see, the middle garage doors, this middle causeway that we sort of sprinted up to start the trial is closing down. We can then go through this final garage door to get back to Sector D, which we still need one more panel, and I did see the wire, so I kind of know where it is. It's going to be over here down this hallway. And again, you can pretty easily learn these things over time, because as I said, there's not really that many panel spawns. Sometimes you'll get both of the D panels upstairs even, so that's sometimes annoying. But yeah, then we just have to hit the button, and that will be the last objective completed. So now what we need to do is get out, which will just involve coming out the garage door that we entered through. And Gooseberry will usually be out here. I don't know if she'll spawn in time on standard or not, but she will usually be out here, so you need to be wary of her. But otherwise, you just come back down to the same shuttle you entered in, hit the button, and end the trial. Easy peasy. So this trial can get pretty confusing, especially if you're shutting down the factory in like weird order, like you do like C and then someone does like B or A, or if you have exit rush and someone does D early, it can be very deadly. So it's more about managing the navigation portion as opposed to the actual objective completion itself. So doing the trial more and more, learning the map more will help in that regard, and just being cognizant of which sectors you have shut down to know which navigation paths are available to you will help you out a lot and go a long way here on Shutdown the Factory. So it's a trial that can be really confusing, but it gets very, very easy as you learn more. in comparison to something like Crush, which can be very confusing at the start, and even once you know it, can still be difficult at times. Shutdown the Factory is very rarely going to give you trouble once you've learned how things work properly. So yeah, that is it for this one. We'll move on to the next MK. Alright, been a few days now, honestly, actually quite a few since my last clip for this, but we're going to be moving on to Fumigate the Factory now, which is the second to last MK here on the Toy Factory, and one of the somewhat newer ones, although it's been out for a decent amount of time at this point. Flatten the Foreman is quite recent, which will be the last one we cover. For this one, I would again just recommend the standard setup, Stun, Nose, Duck, and Smash boosted, but I will be using none of that. And we can load this up, and I'll see you guys when we arrive at the trial. All right, we are here at Fumigate, and we'll be coming out in a pretty familiar place. This is the entryway of Crush the Toys, and also where you exit Incinerate. And again, it's not super relatable in the same way to Pervert the Futterman, but we are here at the incinerator at the very least, although it has been converted a little bit to be more of a gas chamber. As you will see, there's actually some reagents inside of here who you are going to be unfortunately inflicting some poison gas upon as you complete this MK. As you can see, there's these gas chambers here as well. And the main objective is right here. It does show Section A, Section B, and it's kind of the same way, or it's pretty similar to the division in Incinerate the Toys, even though this hallway is available at the start. There's like the left and the right side of the area are separate sections, and each of those is going to have 3 valves we need to turn. So this one is related to pipes and valves, so we'll go ahead and showcase that. But you're going to be returning here once you've done each section to press this button, and then you'll be leaving through the same shuttle. Also pretty safe and free to loot up in this area, by the way, so just go ahead and feel free to do that. But yeah, you come down this hallway, and then once you get to this spot where this revive pill is at, you will have to choose which side you want to go on. So this will split you up in groups as well. You know, depending on how many people are in the trial, a certain number of these tubes will be open. Once you go into one of the areas, you can't leave until you have completed the objective in that area. So yeah, just worth being aware of that. I usually pretty much will always, especially in solo, just go to the green side first. By the way, the pipes on this side are green, on this side they are red. That's how I refer to them, even though they are Section A and Section B. I don't know why, it's just easier for me to refer to them by the color of the pipes. I guess you see those more often than the section letters, and you're not moving between sections very much, so needing the specific callouts is not really that important. But yeah, just pick which side. You will have to do both sides in no matter what group size you're in. So in solo, you'll have to do one side and then come out and go through to the other side. But once you do one side, you are free to come and go as you please from both sides, as you'll see. So we'll walk in here and we will get this little thing here, and then you cannot go back out, as you see. There is basically only one specific tip that I have, like a little trick that is very minor and not that important for this trial. I know this is a pipes trial, of course, so you'd think maybe like Grind the Bad Apples, you'd have crazy pipe skips, but the important thing to know in this trial is that if you find a valve, that means that you have to turn it. There are no fake valves in this trial, so you won't find a valve that will give you psychosis or anything. Like if there's a valve there, then you can safely just turn it knowing that it's part of your objective. So finding pipe skips and things like that is not really all that worth it. One thing that is annoying though is the pipes are a bit more sneaky on this trial. As you can see, they kind of go up into these annoying places. They can be hard to follow. However, there's not really that many valve locations, so once you've done this trial quite a bit, you should pretty much easily be able to completely ignore following the pipes and just go straight directly to the valve locations and check if they're there. And there's also sort of like, kind of like how on, I'm just going to continue talking here for a sec, kind of like how on Kill the Snitch and other trials, there's like sections to the map, and you can know that there will be like one key in this section and one key in another section. Same for here. Basically, there's going to be certain spots in the area that could have a valve, and if there is one there, then you know the other areas that are related to that one don't have the valve. So yeah, that's kind of like the baseline to understand it all. And the one tip that I have is when you come into the green area, you can look at this pipe down here in the ground and look at which way it turns. If it goes to the right, that way, which it rarely does, that means you will have a valve in this room, in this laundry room. That will be where one of your valves is. So it can be kind of useful to see that. If it turns off to the left like it is here, that means your valve is instead either in this hallway that we're walking through or in the bathroom. And that's kind of one of the groupings of valve locations on this. So since there's a valve here, there is definitely not going to be one in the bathroom or the laundry. So it's basically hallway, laundry, bathroom is one of the groupings, and then the other grouping is like the room where the D boxes are on Crush the Toys and the electric room. So we'll go over there, and there will 100% be a valve in one of those two rooms. Now, the gimmick of this trial that you will see take place right when we finish that is once you complete one of these valves, toxic gas will fill the area, and we can just walk out of the room and it will go away. But that is basically the same sort of gas that you maybe have seen on the docks if you've done trials there. This was first introduced with Franco's, poison the medicine and the poison gas on the in the Chemco lab. And how it works is basically slowly you will kind of see your screen distorting. As you can see, we get the thing on the edge of our screen, and then you can slowly see your vision kind of distorting and your FOV changing a bit. And eventually you will start taking damage, very, very slowly, to be honest, but you will start taking damage. So you want to be careful which, when you activate these. Like if you're trying to do secondary objectives, you want to be careful not to do the valves in rooms where you need to do those. Although it's not that big of a deal because you do have a pretty big amount of time to, get through the area before the damage starts actually happening. But it is just important to be aware that you don't want to linger too long in areas once their valves are completely turned, as they do have this poison gas mechanic. Also, another way to lose your poison gas buildup. So again, it's kind of like a buildup. It's kind of like cold or sort of things like that. Unfortunately, there's no UI indicator for this. You kind of just have to get a feel for it by playing. But I think it's somewhere between like 20 and 30 seconds before you start taking damage. What you can do to avoid the damage is, other than just leaving the area, is jumping in a hiding spot. So if you're in a hiding spot similar to avoiding toxic shock or cold snap, you'll see that eventually the stuff will clear from around my vision and I am no longer have any buildup. It does take like a couple seconds once you've left the area for you to fully lose the built up toxic. So just be aware of that as well. And the key thing is once you've done all three of the valves in one of the sides or one of the sections, the entire section will fill up with this gas. So once the first valve you turn will only be the room that you turned it in. Second valve, same thing. But once you turn that third valve, it will fill the entire section with the gas. And that's where it becomes very important for considering it when to do it in terms of secondary objectives. But yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to say about the gas. Just be aware of its existence and its potential to damage you if you linger for too long. Let's head into looking for the others. So this room right here, or it's kind of two rooms connected by a crawl space. This door I don't think is ever available, but this could have one of the other valves, either this room or this crawl space through here. In this case it doesn't, so that actually means we know for a fact that there's going to be a valve in here inside the electric room where the generator is on Crush. So it's in either one of these two rooms and then one of either the hallway, the bathroom, or the laundry, and that's how you work it out. And then the third valve is always going to be in one of the rooms that are outside, up above sort of the E sector area in Crush. That is where the other valve will be. It'll be either in dock supplies, distribution, or the break room, one of those three rooms. And so I think this side, at least for me, although I've done it a lot more because this is where I will always go if I'm in a group, this side for me is easier, and it's easier to learn where the things go, or which places can have valves. The red side I struggle with a bit more, so we actually got lucky having the break room. A lot of the time you will get it in this tiny little room, which is the dock supplies, and that absolutely sucks when you get that, because on higher difficulties there will be a giant back here patrolling, and Gooseberry will show up sometimes, so that can be very annoying, and it's very centralized, and almost always this door is blocked or padlocked and you only have the window opposite it to work with. So yeah, I really hate getting the dock supplies, but if you get it over there in distribution center, which is the only other place it can spawn, there, or the break room, it's a bit more, you know, off to the side, off-centered, and easier to do stealthily without getting heard. So we're going to do this. And importantly, actually, I don't know, will the break room itself here fill up with gas? It might. But the outside area, there's outdoor areas on both sides. Whoops. How did this screamer move and still set off, like, right next to me, dude? Did I lose my brick for throwing it at this? Okay, I don't know where my brick went then. I'm confused. Anyway, let's see. I actually don't even know this myself. Okay, yeah, so the little room where I turned it does fill up with gas, but it's important to know that when you're in these big, large outdoor sort of areas, the gas will not be here regardless of the status of all the other valves. You can see there's these red alarms going off. That basically shows that we've completed the objective on this side, and the entire area is filled with gas. I wonder, I assume this will actually have gas in it. It does. Okay, that's worth knowing, I guess. I just wasn't certain of that, but it makes sense as well because they're having the alarms going off. I don't know if that canceled him, but it might have. It did, yes. So yeah, that's basically the green side, the east side. Or sorry, why did I say the east side? I don't know. But that's the green side, and now we need to head over to the red side. And there's a few ways you can go about this. There's a few different pathways that lead you back to the different locations. I need to get past Gooseberry here. So the first way is to, I think you can just go back the way you came. Let me check that before I say that confidently. Of course, there's another fucking pouncer, dude. Fuck you. Alright. Yeah, so once you complete the objective in that area, the tubes will go down and you can go through. Also out here in the hallway, it is not toxic. It is only in the area itself. You could also have come down this, the equivalent hallway to my left, and come out one of these doors through these little, you know, I don't even know, car wash things. They always remind me of car wash things for some reason. Although they are, I think they're probably more associated with like walk-in freezers and stuff. But you can come that way, and then there's one third way all the way far down here where you start Crush the Toys. There is a spot you can come through as well. So there's all those that will open up for you when you are done with the objective area over there. And then this is also open for us to get to Section A, or if we want, we can go through the tube over here. But I don't think the spot that leads back... There's one other spot where you enter Section A, but I don't think that opens till the end. Yeah, it's right there. And that's usually where I go to get back to the middle to push the button. But let's get into Section A, and I'll talk a little bit about where you can find the valves here. So there's one that's kind of like near the entrance area a bit. So it can be either in this little crawl space room where the B boxes are. It could be like there, or like between these things. The thing about the red side is the valves, again, I think have more spawn locations quite heavily. So it can be almost anywhere in this room. You just need to be a bit observant. Could also be in this big room, maybe like over there or something. But I find it's really rare to find it in this room. If it's not in one of these two rooms, then you know it is in the pump room, which is right here. So you can see it's going to be in one of these three rooms. And we did get it in the pump room. And then the other valve is going to be in one of the other three rooms. So there's the foreman's office, doll assembly, and I honestly can't remember the name of the central room. This room here. But it's going to be in one of these three rooms. I think it's just like processing or something. I don't know. It's not labeled on this trial. It's only labeled on Incinerate. But yeah, it's either going to be in this room, in the middle room, or in the room over there. So I find it is often in this central room and often in this exact location. So I usually check here first. But yeah, that's how the RNG works on the red side. So it's nice to know these things because you can immediately write off every other. So like I know I definitely don't have to go into the doll assembly or the foreman's office because I've already gotten the valve that is a part of those sections. Again, of course, that room filled up with the gas, and you definitely want to be aware of that. Also, I talked more about the valves and turning them in terms of the objective itself in my video for Grind the Bad Apples. I forgot to mention that, but I mean, you just walk up to them, grip them, and then turn them. And it's a bit weird how they do turn. I will just mention that for a second here. It's kind of strange because you kind of start to turn it and it moves the needle really slowly, and then in the middle of the turn it moves it really quickly, and then at the end of the turn it's slow again. So if you only partially turn it, that will mess with things a little bit. So like watch, if I do this and then like let it go, it didn't move very far even though I committed to the noise and the turn because I let go. But then, you know, I'll only have to turn it, I can like slowly incrementally turn it if I want, which is obviously stupid, but if you have to do that because you're about to get hit, then, you know, it is what it is. But eventually you will like barely have to touch it and it will move all the way. So they can be moved incrementally, which is kind of interesting and just worth knowing, I guess, is all I would say. Now the third and final valve will be in one of the, again, outside areas, either the West Dock offices over there, the supervisor's office up there, or maintenance, which is kind of like in between this area and the supervisor's office. So we're gonna go check up here first. This area, like over here, is like maintenance. So it can be like here or you know, in a couple places over here in maintenance. And that place trips a lot of people up on Incinerate because they don't know where the maintenance room is. Can also be in this hallway, like here, or somewhere in this room, which is the supervisor's office. However, I would say it is definitely most common to find it in the West Dock offices over here. You can also look for the pipe and where it goes when you're in these outdoor ones because it's much more obvious and easy to see to which of the rooms it goes. And we did get the West Dock offices here, so it can again be in many of these different little areas and little rooms inside of here. Again, I do think the red side valves have more variability in their spawns, but usually the one that's outside here is pretty free to turn. You're very unlikely to get hurt or interrupted, and we can finish it off. And now the whole factory is like technically filled with gas, although again, outside in this big open area, we are safe. And usually from here, as I do normally do this in the same order, I will run in this direction. But basically you just have to get back to the middle, however you want. But again, this gate opens up, which is a nice way that leads you straight back there. You can also go back to the left side and go through the room where you start Crush, or through the tubes that you went through. Those will now be gone, but however you want, you got to get back here. And now we have to hit the button. This is a regroup button, so you need your teammates. And when you press this button, this gate over here will close. Like everything will close and you'll be trapped in this room for a little bit. Gooseberry will usually spawn, and a giant on higher difficulties. And the entire area, even here, will also fill with gas, and you need to be aware of that. And then after a certain amount of time, this gate will open up, and then you can go hit the button and get out. So usually the general strategy is to press the button, just like so, and then just hide in a hiding spot, because again, this protects you from the gas buildup. And as you can see, the alarms are now going off in this area. The gas is starting to come out, and if we were out there, we would be getting gas buildup. And you can hear the alarm door going off as well. I think that's Gooseberry. There she is, yep. So once you get the exit the trial assignment showing up, that means the gate is open and you can get out and go to the shuttle. But you also want to be careful of Gooseberry. And if you run straight to the shuttle, press it, you don't have to hide and you won't take damage. The shuttle will arrive in time for you to avoid taking damage, but it's pretty close. So if you get delayed by Gooseberry or have to, do anything else, you might want to run away and jump in a hiding spot quick to ditch some of your buildup, like I'm doing here. I mean, this is just if you're going for an A+, because again, the damage from the gas is not that high. So you could easily tank it for quite a while if you need to run away from someone, or you're just waiting for the shuttle to arrive. So yeah, once the shuttle's here, again, you want to get out of here fairly quickly so you don't take damage from the gas as it is building up, since it now encompasses the entire trial, I think. Although it's possible the outdoor areas behind the sections are still safe. I've never actually gone back to them after hitting the button, or I don't even know if you can. Maybe the gates are all closed off. But regardless, just be aware that that area near the incinerator and the the shuttle is potentially dangerous, having the gas building up and damaging you. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty simple trial. It can feel pretty daunting at first, especially if you're still trying to follow the pipes to get to the valves. I would recommend definitely just continue trying at it, and probably just like don't go looking for the pipes with the don't go looking for the valves by following the pipes. Just check the rooms that I said. Like, knowing the groupings of rooms and where the valves are going to spawn is very, very helpful in that trial, and I think that would help you out a lot. And just be aware that it is very often annoying because enemies do hear those valves. They're very loud, and you'll have to probably turn them, 2 or 3 times, maybe even 1 or 2 times at a time to get it done. You turn it once or twice, then run away. So just be prepared to deal with that as well. But yeah, overall, pretty easy trial once you know all the spawns, but it can be pretty frustrating when you're first trying it out. So again, definitely hope that helps you guys out. Last up here, we have Flatten the Foreman, which is probably the most complicated MK on this map, although it's kind of close because Crush is kind of complicated, I guess. But this is the newest MK, and it involves keys that you have to find, as well as unstable microwave triggers. You might remember the microwave trigger from the courthouse. Vindicate the Guilty and Escape the Courthouse have the witnesses that you use microwave triggers on to kill. But in this trial, as we'll see, they are one-time use, and they're used to open doors, basically. Not doors, but gates, but still. That's a mechanic that was borrowed from the Cook the Informant trial, was I think when we first saw that. So yeah, I'll show you guys how that all works and the other small nuances once we get over to the trial. All right, we are here now at Flatten the Foreman, and we are going to be coming out of an area that's a little bit modified, but will be a bit familiar from. It's one of these spawns of Incinerate here in like the front of the factory or whatever. I don't know, like the non-loading dock side. However, we are not going to be going into the lower areas. You actually are immediately just going to be put up the stairs and into the upper areas. I don't think this area is usually safe to loot up, so just be aware that I think a giant spawns in pretty quick. I know Lilia, this trial came out on the patch which brought the advent of Bogomolova event and the Lilia Variator, and she would come out like immediately when you stepped at the shuttle, basically from over here, and just start fucking you up. So yeah, it's a pretty closed off area. There's not much to explore anyway, so you just wouldn't want to come ahead here and come up these stairs. And this is what introduces the unstable microwave trigger mechanic. So, as I said, they work the same way as the microwave triggers from Vindicate that you're probably familiar with. But you can see it says defect, do not use. That basically means it's going to explode once you use it. And that doesn't your character will make it sound like it hurts, but it doesn't actually do any damage or cause any demerits. And these yellow lights are what you're going to be using these microwave triggers on. So yeah, and that will open a nearby associated gate, and that's kind of a pretty big portion of how you navigate the trial on this trial. So yeah, you're going to want to be on the lookout for basically these little stands, because each of those will have a unstable microwave trigger on them, and you can then use those to help you navigate the map. The main strategy that people use is, and this map that we're heading into is basically the same as Shutdown the Factory. It just has this back area added on. It has the same sort of sectors that are blocked off by unstable microwave trigger gates. And the main strategy people generally do is just try to find a few triggers and then do a straight line down the middle of the map, opening each gate that you actually close on Shutdown the Factory. It's kind of like reverse Shutdown the Factory in that way. And that allows you free passage back and forth through all the sectors with the minimal amount of triggers used. There's also some smash double doors upstairs if you have a co-op partner or the smash amp. You can use those to skip a little bit of usage of the triggers as well. However, before I jump in, we do want to talk a little bit more about the other kind of mechanic that gets involved in this trial, and that's the difficulty system, which you might remember from Eliminate the Past, which is on the police station, and I have talked about it. It's a little bit different here, but it does the same sort of thing. Basically, once you go into the trial, depending on the difficulty of the game you're playing, like I'm playing Introductory, there will be a timer that starts counting down, and once the timer reaches 0, the difficulty level will go up by 1. So you remember from Eliminate the Past, it was based on how many boxes you found. Here instead, it's like difficulty 1 after, I think on intro, and it's 3 minutes, like you have quite a long time, but it'll slowly go up the longer you take in the trial, and as it goes up, more and more X-pop will spawn in. That's basically all the difficulty system does, is it spawns in more X-pop as the number gets higher. But if it gets to difficulty 10, there are quite a lot of X-pop around, and it can be a little bit difficult to get around and navigate, especially on higher difficulties or fried escalation variators. So it is definitely worth trying to go at least somewhat quickly through this trial because of that difficulty system. It's a cool implementation of it, although again, it's not all that impactful. unless you get, excuse me, really fried variators or are just completely lost and slow, because you can normally complete this trial quite quickly. So we're going to go ahead and open this up now finally, and you'll see this thing explodes in my hand and we lose it. And you take a left immediately into the main area of the trial, and you see the difficulty level right here. It's going to start counting down in just a moment. Give it a sec. Okay, here we go. Okay, it starts at difficulty 1, I guess. And then, yeah, even 3.5 minutes we have until it goes up to difficulty 2, and then so on and so forth. And the main objective of this trial is to press this button, basically, to flatten the foreman who is trapped in this compactor. And we just found a microwave trigger pretty easily. And in order to do that, you need to find 4 keys, and there's one in each section, and the signs of where they are right here, nicely labeled for you: break room, workshop, infirmary, and mezzanine. If you have if you watched our Foreman No Loadout, you might remember OMO, which originated here. And that can be kind of helpful to remember the letters of the rooms. Just do like BWIM, or if you'd like to make it a word, BWIM could be usable here. And that can just help you more easily remember which room is which. And because each area only has a certain number of rooms, usually a single area doesn't have multiple different rooms for the same letter. So we have break room in section A, BWIM, and we're going to go and grab that. We already have 2 microwave triggers, so that was very easy. And the doors I'm saying that most people open are basically these ones that just lead straight down the middle and give you easy access, because it's important to know that once you hit this button, the flattening will commence, and then once it's done, the shuttle will arrive. You have 3 minutes to leave still, but it can be a bit sketchy if you are on a high difficulty level and there's a lot of enemies that want to prevent you from getting out the garage door, because it's the same exit as Shutdown the Factory out back in the loading dock through that garage door there. But we're going to head upstairs, and you just kind of have to learn the room names over time. There's not a whole lot of guidance I can give there, although this one is probably the weirdest one. Operations here in A sector is like just this area right here. It's just like weirdly out here, but there's like storages in there. So it's like that weird not even room, but yeah. The break room, some of these you might be familiar with from Pervert the Futterman, but some others, like the mezzanine, you won't have heard of before, probably. So we're going to talk about, or I'm not really going to talk about exactly where each of these rooms is, but just once you play more and also just look around for the signs, because the signs are very helpful. Once you get into the room, you just need to look around for a key, basically. Can be pretty much anywhere. The keys are probably the most flexible items in the entire game in terms of where they spawn. So yeah, just be aware of that. And now we have the A key. You can carry all 4 keys. You don't need to go back to use it if you don't want to. And what we could do technically is like use our microwave trigger on this to go into B sector and look for the workshop, which is where our second key is. But again, I do personally prefer and think it is probably best to just go down the middle of the area. Although it can be much faster technically to go through these, you might have a hard time getting out at the end of the trial if you don't have this way paved completely down the middle. Of course, if you open all of these, and it takes 3 of the unstable microwave triggers to open all the doors I'm talking about, and we'll open this second one as well. Once you have them all opened down the middle here, you can take extra triggers with you and use those to open other doors that are in your way if you want a quick little shortcut through the map. And we can grab the last one that we need for the way out right here. And then Sector B, we need to go to the workshop. And you just heard the alarm go off, and the difficulty level has gone up again, so just something to be aware of. And we do have an extra microwave trigger now, so that is nice. The problem with going through the extra doors sometimes is that you, like in this case, well, I guess maybe you could if you got lucky. Oh wow, I can like angle it. But usually when you're on the other side of a gate trying to go backwards, then you won't be able to see the little light to destroy it. Like in this case, if I was on the other side of this gate, I would never be able to see that because it's just a solid wall in the way. Well, yeah. So yeah, there'd be no way because this room is not available. Yeah. So that can be a bit of a downside as well of using random gates, because they will you'll try to go elsewhere backwards, and you won't be able to because there will be gates in the way. But here's the workshop. Again, very, very nicely labeled, all these rooms. So we just need to find the key. There it is. Pick it up. And now we need to head to Sector C. And I am going to do what I said because it mainly applies to the middle doors. So I already know that I opened the door between B and C. So going through this gate and then looping back around to the gate that I opened already won't be as big of a deal. So I can open this up to give me a little bit of a shortcut because we know that the infirmary is actually right here. Or at least I know that. Again, learning where the rooms are will take some time. But we can grab the infirmary key. And then the mezzanine is like this weird area. It's right on the other side of that gate, but we only have the one microwave trigger, and we still need to open the last gate that leads to D down the middle. So I'm just going to go down the stairs here and go there. This trial can be a bit annoying to navigate, again, because of this microwave trigger setup, and because, in particular, Section C has staircase only on this side of the map, so you have to go all the way over there and then all the way along the catwalk to kind of get anywhere, which can be annoying. But we're going to open up the last important door here into D, where we, again, need the key on the mezzanine. And this is where we're going to be leaving the trial. So you're going to need to go through this garage door, which can take a long time to open if you're in group. And there can be a lot of enemies here if your difficulty level is high with the timer counting down. So it can be a little bit scary trying to do this ending. But usually it's not too bad, especially if you have like loadout with a rig and stuff. You can pretty easily get through. But yeah, we see the sign. Mezzanine is literally like just this walkway area, so there's not a lot of spawns for the key, but it's one of the other very weird rooms similar to operations that you might not be familiar with. But there we go. We have all of our keys, and see now, like, I could go through this if I had opened it earlier, but I didn't have the spare microwave trigger. But it doesn't really matter because we have this full causeway up the middle. And you basically now just need to head back, put all 4 keys in, press the button, and get out of the trial. So it is a bit complicated because it has these microwave triggers involved. It has a difficulty system going, and then you also have to run around, find the keys, know where the rooms are. So this one can take quite a bit of getting used to, especially learning where all the rooms are will help you a lot. And then obviously, again, the faster you go, the better you will, the less enemies you'll have to deal with. Now on intro, it takes like 30 minutes to get up to difficulty 10, so you have some time there. But at Psycho, I think it's a minute and a half per difficulty level, so it's not really that much time when you think about it, especially if you're dealing with variators like Cold Snap or Toxic Shock, where you have to hide for a while, or you have like broken reagents, so you have no prescriptions, deep burns, so your stamina recharge is worse. I am going to open this just to not have to run back through that grunt. Maybe he'll hear this and also react to that sound, and then we can just run around. Obviously, putting the keys in the locks is just the same as it has been on every other trial we've done this on. It's very loud, so you do need to be wary of that, but otherwise you just walk up and click it to put the key in, and it'll automatically do it for you as long as you have the key. So just 4 keys going in here, and then the button becomes available. And one thing that's good to know is that the compacting process is actually pretty long, so you can make it almost to the garage before it's even done and before the shuttle arrives. So I'm going to do that. We press the button and immediately run. You can stand there and watch him get crushed and watch the blood come out if you really, really want, but better safe to run just straight down the middle, which is why we opened it completely. Jump on this garage door. Hopefully nobody's nearby, or you can use your rig or get rid of them some other way. And then you're out safely here, and see, as you see, it didn't even start until I got out already, and now I have 3 minutes to get out of the trial. So as long as you're quick and don't linger after hitting the button, it's really never going to be that big of a deal. But again, on higher difficulties with more enemies and worse variators, you could have a hard time getting that garage door open. So it's very important to be careful and be aware of what's around and what you're dealing with. But that is Flatten the Foreman, and that is the final trial here on the Toy Factory. So yeah, I hope this helped you guys out. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry this one took so long to get out. I've been a bit busy with other things lately and haven't been grinding the content or the game as much, just doing my normal streams and weekly videos and stuff like that. I'm going to also try and get the mirrored video out before the patch, but if you haven't seen it yet, we have a huge patch coming on Tuesday for the game, and it's going to be amazing. Check out my full details video if you want all the info, but I'll be streaming all day, starting at 10, starting right when the patch drops, and so you don't want to miss out on the new Twitch drops and all the content coming as a result of that. So yeah, looking forward to the big patch, and obviously next time on this series we'll be covering the docks, which is Franco's first map, so that should be interesting. That was a really weird noise I just made. But yeah, that should be fun. Actually has my least favorite main trial on it, which is Poison the Medicine. I'm not sure when that's going to come out. I don't have a set date for it. We have so much to cover in Season 7 that I don't want to, commit to a time or date, but still, we'll get to it eventually. And then the docks is actually the last one with like a lot of trials. Downtown only has 3 MKs, same with Suburbs. Shopping Mall only has 2, Resort has 2, TV Studio is getting its first one in the new patch, so we don't have a whole ton left to cover, honestly, so I'm happy with that as well. I think we've made some good progress on this series. The Courthouse is actually getting a new MK with the patch Bribe the Judges, so yeah, that's going to be maybe something I add a guide for later or something, but anyways, I've yapped long enough. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if this helped you out, don't forget to subscribe for future videos. Check out the other videos in the Outlast Trials University playlist if you want to learn more about the game, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.